Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Oleg. This is my colleague, Zin. We're going to talk about building the AI infra behind 20 billion plus vector search at Hubspot. So to start on the agenda, we're going to talk about the VAST platform. Then we're going to talk about the Helm era and early POC as we start our search journey. And after that, we're going to talk about Hubspot Kubernetes Operator and wrap up with a case study. So jumping right into it, the VAST platform. So what is VAST? VAST stands for Vector as a Service, and it is a HubSpot centralized vector storage and search platform built on top of Qdrant. It provides access control, embeddings generation based on collection model settings, evaluations, so data to compare performance on different setups and models, and a feedback collection. In terms of architecture, to simplify it, it's basically a service that sits in front of Qdrant, so clients communicate with VAST directly. For read operation, VAST is basically getting the search request, do basic validation, generate embeddings, and then proxy the request to Qdrant cluster set up for the specific collection, and returns the result back to client. For write one, it's a bit more complex. The VAST service getting the requests, do the same validation, embeddings generation, and then push it to the Kafka topic, which in its turn asynchronously consumed by Kafka indexers, and ingest data to the Qdrant itself. It's mostly done for traffic control and ensures that Qdrant is resilient for traffic spikes and not affected by that. In terms of scale, so we serve about 38 plus teams across HubSpot, managing fleet of 150 clusters and about 2K plus pods. There are about 20 billion plus vectors across 5 regions with 200 plus collections. The largest collection being 9.5 billion vectors, and the average collection size is 95 millions. In terms of traffic, the platform handles 5,000 writes per second, and we saw the spikes up to 100K. For reads, it's about 1,000 requests per second across all regions. So going to the Helm era, that was an early POC which we started with a limited number of consumers. There was less than 10 clusters. Helm was used for operation, and all additional artifacts as Kafka topics, workers, etc. were defined in code or created manually. And clusters were defined as stateful sets and share the same namespace. So as you see on the diagram, in a single deployment region, we had like same shared Kubernetes namespace that was used across all clusters. And it worked great for a small fleet of clusters and allow us to iterate fast and keep the setup simple. As always, platform grow and number of use cases grow, we start hitting the Helm's limit. So Helm is a powerful tool, but it's purely a templating and deployment tools that cannot do things as make API calls. So it's not possible to create or request additional artifacts required for the setup through API calls. After scale based on metrics, there's no good way to request metrics to apply after scale, specifically if it should be state aware. And of course, run custom logic for complex state aware lifecycle management. So we cannot do things like trigger rebalance in shards across healthy pods, or ensures the replication factor is preserved during scaling. And applying it to the Qdrant. So Qdrant is stateful. It has shards, replicas, rebalancing, so none of this is visible to Helm. And if you consider use cases as scaled down from 3 to 2 pod, which is actually shown in our diagram, Kubernetes will just kill pod 2 immediately, and shards get deleted. If you need, if shard replica gets purged, there's no control loop to maintain replication factor. And if you need to transfer shards before removing a node, Helm can't call the Qdrant API to do that. In addition to that, we faced multiple manual operations which increase the load on the team. So cluster creation was taking hours to roll out, and as a result, we had to pre-create clusters ahead of time or keep extra downscaled clusters just in case if recovery will be needed. And just to demonstrate it a little bit, to create a single new cluster, we have to create Helm charts across all zones and environments, then manually create Kafka topics for indexes, write behind log, write ahead log, Then make a code changes to register this new cluster at VAST service and merge and deploy VAST service changes so the cluster is available to all consumers. And another good example is scaling down horizontally. So scaling down a cluster safely requires a custom job plus manual steps each time. If you want to scale down the cluster and remove the pod 2, you have to transfer shards of the pod 2 through a custom job, then remove the pod from consensus from through another custom job, and then manually update Helm cluster to lower number of replicas, deploy it, and at the end delete orphan PVC. Same problem was for scaling up. Basically, we have to update Helm, increase number of replicas, deploy it. We get in the new pod starting up, but the problem is it has 0 shards. So after which we have to utilize the job to transfer shard to this new pod and make sure it's all balanced and so on. With that, I'm transferring it to my colleague Zin to talk about Hubspot Kubernetes Operator and how we use it to solve all these problems.
Yeah, so as we scaled our vector search infrastructure, it became very difficult to do so with Helm. So we migrated onto the Kubernetes operators pattern. So internally at HubSpot, we had a framework that follows the operator pattern. At its core, you define a custom resource, an object in Kubernetes API, and then you're able to programmatically mutate the resources and the provisioning of the cluster. So pretty much all we had to do was just implement operators or controllers that watches a CR, and then it will reconcile with what is in the desired state and the actual state in the Kubernetes environment. And our architecture for our operators looks something like this. So we no longer define our clusters as templated files in Helm. Instead, we define them as custom resource objects. So our operators basically watches the CR definition. It will pick up all the fields, and then it will spin up the rest of the stack for the cluster. So like Oleg mentioned, we had, for every cluster, we had the cluster itself, and then we had the write path, which we built with Kafka, which we called out indexers. So the operators architecture is comprised of 3 main components. Internally, we call them translators, but really they're just long-running pods that watches a CR. It will upsert the diff to the actual state, and it will run some custom logic. And to current date, we have 3 translators. We have the cluster translator, the indexer translator, and the quadrant nodes translator. And the framework is extensible, so if we ever want to expand support for different automations, we just need to add more translators and custom resources. So at the very top of the operators architecture, we have the cluster translator. This is deployed per deployment region. We have clusters across 5 different regions at HubSpot. Basically, the cluster translator watches the cluster custom resource, and it's responsible for constructing and maintaining the namespace and all downstream resources. And then we have the indexer translator. This is deployed per cluster namespace. It watches the indexer CR, so how many indexer worker pods we need and what the topics are. It will basically be responsible for constructing and maintaining the Kafka resources for cluster ingestion. And then lastly, we have the quadrant nodes translator. This is also deployed 1 per cluster namespace. It monitors how many pods we want in the cluster. It also manages all the Kubernetes artifacts needed to run the cluster in Kubernetes. Additionally, this is where we build in our custom logic for any cluster lifecycle automation. So one of the first main things that we solved with the operators was just figuring out how to automate shard management. So in this example, when we want to scale down pods horizontally now, we just make a change programmatically through the Kubernetes API. We update the CR, and the translator will pick up the changes. It will run this reconcile loop where it will move shards off the decommissioning pods onto the pods that are still in the cluster. And then it will clean up the wrapped consensus, and it will clean up any resources that are still left behind, like pods with PVCs. And lastly, it's going to maintain the shard count against the replication factor. And yeah, migrating onto Kubernetes Operator has been very successful. We've reduced cluster spin-up time from hours to minutes. Everything that we need for running a cluster and all its artifacts are just provisioned behind a single config now. It's also made our team super flexible. So we no longer need to have like idle standby clusters for like disaster recovery. We can spin them on the fly. And also, like, we've reduced like operational pain. As we grow our vector search infrastructure and we add more clusters, we no longer need to be burdened with maintenance. And lastly, all of this is super extensible, so we've laid a foundation for us to develop more automation in the future. And here's a quick case study on how the operator functions in production. So for this example, we had a cluster that was super imbalanced by shard count. It's a single cluster with one collection. It's a BM42 sparse vectors collection. It's custom sharded, 3 billion plus points, more than 30 pods. So the problem was that the cluster was super imbalanced by shard count. So this led to heavy resource usage skew. So the hottest pod used 1.5 times more RAM than the smallest pod. And this was not great for infrastructure spend efficiency. So our operator was able to automatically transfer shards from pods with excess shards to pods with the efficiency of shards. And after it shuffled shards around, we reduced our usage skew by 65%. So here's some screenshots from our Grafana, but you can see shards just even out. Memory usage got compressed a bit more, so we just got more bang for our buck. And yeah, on the topic of costs, some of the things that we do, we run scalar quantization. We use the on-disk options for vectors and payload storage. For cases where scalar quantization is not applicable, we use float 16 data types. Additionally, our operator shard balancing reduces premature scaling, which also helps us out in the long run. And lastly, we promote cost visibility per collection to encourage more savings from teams that use our platform. So yeah, because we're on the operators now, we're able to build the groundwork for future automation. So some ideas we have, just automating scale down recommendations, finding candidates for quantization, and then just EBS volume right sizing. And that's all for today. Thank you guys so much for coming and listening. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.